Hey, this is Mr. Aiden. This is the 2022 AP Calculus AB free response question number 1. This was the first calculator question, and this was the exam taken on Monday, May 9th of the 2022 exam. Check out my website, mraiden.com. Check out my YouTube channel, Mr. Aiden. And let's get to this calculator problem. You can see it is a contextual problem here where they gave me a function. And this function is an a of t, and this is the rate at which vehicles are arriving. So this is a rate, and take a look at the units here. The units are vehicles per hour. So this is my a of t is my rate. Our time 0 starts at 5 a.m. and you can see they're kind of going from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. And so the first thing I did, we use TI Nspire CX CAS calculators in my class. The first thing I did is I defined this function in my calculator. I like to define functions as f of x, so I define f of x as a of t, which means in my calculator, I defined f of x as 450 the square root of sine of 0.62x. And so I defined that in my calculator, and then now I'm able to do this problem. You can see, first they said write but don't evaluate an integral expression that gives us the total number of vehicles. So we're looking for the total number of vehicles, just like a displacement type problem. And so we're just going to simply write the integral. We're going to write the integral from time 1, which was 6 a.m., to time 5, which is 10 a.m., of a of t dt, or you could have put 1 and 5 and spelled out 450 the square root of sine of 0.62t d of t. Don't forget your d of t. And that's my integral expression to find the total number of vehicles. Okay, let's go to question B. Question B is we're looking for the average value of the rate in vehicles per hour. So how are we going to do an average value of the rate? Well, we're going to do 1 over, and we start at 1, we go to 5, so 1 over 5 minus 1, okay? And we're going to do 450 the square root of sine of 0.62t d of t. And I'm going to do this in my calculator, but in my calculator I'm going to do 1 over 4, the integral from 1 to 5 of f of x dx. And that gives me my average number of vehicles, which is 375.537, and that will be in vehicles per hour. Why is it vehicles per hour? The integral gives you vehicles. This is 1 over 5 minus 1 hours, so that leaves us with vehicles per hour. And that is my average rate from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. in the morning. Okay, make sure you get your coffee. And let's go to problem number C. Problem number C says, is the rate increasing or decreasing? Giving it a reason for your answer. So we're looking for, is the rate increasing or decreasing? So what did I do? I found the rate at time equals 1, which means I plugged in a of 1, or in my calculator, f of 1. And I got positive 343.01548, and that is vehicles per hour. Okay, and so you can see that's a positive value for the rate. Positive for the rate. Well, I then found the rate of the rate at time equals 1, which means I took the derivative at a point. The derivative, I did f prime of 1, the derivative at a point, and that gave me positive 148.94727, and that is vehicles per hour squared. And so you can see we have a positive value for the rate, a positive value for the acceleration, or the rate of the rate, which means the rate, because these signs are the same, the rate is increasing at time equals 1. You can see I definitely showed that this rate is increasing. You can see the acceleration is increasing. It's a positive value, and that is letter C. Now we got to letter D. Letter D, a lot of students probably looked at letter D and it became what do I do here? And what I would say in calculus is when you get to a problem where you're not quite sure what to do what you know how to do. And usually it ends up becoming working out. And so you can see it says a line forms whenever the cars or whenever the rate exceeds 400. Okay, and it says the number of vehicles from A to T is given by this function right here. And you can see we have the fundamental theorem of calculus jumping in here. And so we want to know the greatest number of vehicles. We want to know a maximum. So what do we do with the maximum? The greatest number of vehicles is we're going to take the first derivative test, and we're going to set that first derivative equal to 0. So I'm going to do n prime of t, which is d over dt of the integral of a to t of a of x minus 400 d of x. And so think about this fundamental theorem of calculus. The derivative of the integral cancels each other out, which means this is really a of t minus 400, and we're going to set that equal to 0. And so what I'm going to do is, in my calculator, I'm going to take this function, and I am going to graph this function in my calculator. I'm going to graph y equals, in my calculator, I did f of x minus 400, and I looked at where these values are equal to 0. I'll bring up GeoGebra right here. You can see I put in y equals 450 square root of sine of 0.62 x minus 400. And do you see how if I do this, the root, okay, right here it hits the x-axis at 1.46937. You can see another one is 3.5977. That is when we have our first derivative test here. And so I have two times. Time 1 ends up becoming 1.46937. Time 2, when it equaled 0, was 3.59771. Okay. You can see we also want to think about the time is equal to 4 because we're looking for an absolute maximum. So we have to consider the endpoints. We have to consider the endpoint. And I can't really spell endpoint, but that's why I'm a math teacher. So endpoint there. And so you can see this time is when this is your time equals a. And this is your possible time, or 4 is your possible time. Well, if we take a look at the integral from time equals 1, which is 1.46937, and we take a look at this 3.59771 of a of x minus 400 d of x, we end up getting 71.25413. And this means 71 cars. This is our maximum time here. This is our maximum time, or maximum greatest number of vehicles. It's not really cars, it's vehicles. It could be motorcycles, could be vehicles, could be guys with big trucks trying to compensate for something. Could be anything. So 71 vehicles is the greatest number of vehicles in line during that. That is the first of the 2022 AP Calculus AB free response question number 1. Have a good day. Take care.